Your choices, your future. In the text, The Other Westmore, One Name, Two Fates, Westmore gave readers the ability to look through a microscope at two young men's paths that were influenced by their education, expectations, and environment. It gives insight and first-hand experience of the characters that may make the reader think they're completely the same. What makes them different is how their paths take two separate turns. Ultimately, Moore's connections between education, expectations, and environment gives the reader the understanding that it can greatly influence their future, for the better or for worse. Moore grew up in a city where most people weren't of wealthy backgrounds. Drug and gang affiliation influenced the people of his streets. Most children had single parent households, and education wasn't the top priority of the people he grew up with. Moore wrote, "My father was dead 5 hours after having been released from the hospital, with the simple instruction to get some sleep. The same hospital was now preparing to send his body to the morgue. Moore grew up without his father for much of his life, leaving his mother to take care of his siblings and teach them the morals of life. He didn't have a father figure to ensure that he would know the way of what was considered to be a real man. Moore let the streets get the best of him at a young age. Moore wrote, "It seemed as if everybody in the hood had their own nickname and tag. Some more elaborate than others, even me. Mine was simple, a KK with a circle around it, standing for Kid Cupid, an alter ego I assumed to advertise my largely imaginary prowess with the young ladies." He went around the city of Bronx tagging walls with spray paint, with marking them with his Kid Cupid symbol. He enjoyed doing it so much that he and his friends got stopped by the police. Luckily, they were given a second chance, which was exactly what Moore needed. Moore attended Riverdale Country School, which he was made fun of by his friends that went to public schools. Moore writes, "It was the sort of school you might find in a storybook, a fantasy for a public school kid. My mother saw Riverdale as a haven, a place where I could escape my neighborhood and open my horizons." Moore's mother didn't want him to be influenced by his environment. She wanted the best for him and his sisters and for them to reach their full potential, but overall, she was scared for him. Moore let his grades slip and got suspended from school for fighting. His mother took matters into her own hands and sent him off to Valley Forge Military School in Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is where the West's road split ways. Moore didn't take military school serious because he never thought his mother would send him there. It turned out to be the best thing that happened to him. His heart changed when he decided to walk away from getting attacked by guys that were stalking him and his friend. He knew it wasn't worth it and would lead to nothing but trouble. Watende, his middle name, meaning revenge will not be sought, was shining through him. Moore wrote, "My mother had noticed the way I had changed since leaving for military school. My back stood straight, and my sentences now ended with sir or ma'am." Military school changed Moore's life for the better, molding him into a man following their honor code. A cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those that do. Were not simple words we had to memorize, but words to live by. Moore stuck to his path and became a second lieutenant. He also got the opportunity to travel to South Africa to study abroad, not only to study, but to also understand the history. Moore wrote, "The common bond of humanity and decency that we share is stronger than any conflict, any adversity, any challenge. Fighting for your convictions is important, but finding peace is paramount. Knowing when to fight and when to speak is wisdom. Ubuntu was right, and so is my father. Watende, my middle name, all at once made perfect sense. Every action doesn't need a reaction. You must find the knowledge of what peace is to understand when to let things go as opposed to fight." Learning this was learning this very important lesson influenced Moore's future for the better. West grew up around the same people, drugs, and environment as Moore did. Moore wrote, "Close to 70% of the kids were on the school lunch program. The neighborhood wasn't the richest and most had to depend on the government for assistance. Because of this, West took it upon himself to make money, but not the right way." Moore wrote, "Not only did you lie to me, but you were selling drugs and keeping them in my home, putting all of us in danger because of your stupidity. I do not want to hear your sob story about how much money you owe. You will stop selling that stuff. I will be checking your room, and I don't want to ever see it in here again. Now get out of my room." West had no father, but his brother Tony acted as his father figure throughout his life. West was following in Tony's gangster, drug selling footsteps. West could buy so many pairs of shoes and new clothes, like his brother. He liked what the money could get him and the reputation he could make for himself while only in his teenage years. His surroundings and Tony also influenced him by viewing violence as normal. He got in fights with other kids, his brother, and even took part in a shootout. His first time he had been arrested was for charging at another boy with a knife in his hand, ready to stab him for punching him in the face. He was taught, if someone disrespects you, you send a message so fierce that they won't have time to have the chance to do it again. Wes lived by this. Every action needed a reaction. When it came to Wes's education, he didn't view it as a priority. He let his grades slip and got held back in elementary school. Moore wrote, the conversation between brothers quickly turned to school. Tony was enraged. Yo, you need to take this shit seriously, man. Acting stupid ain't cool. Tony wanted better for Wes. He didn't want Wes to follow behind in his footsteps. Wes's mother wanted more for him also. She was even trying to better herself by attending school, but ended up getting her grant confiscated. But Wes knew nothing but the streets. Wes tried to give himself a second chance by attending Corps, a program that helped disadvantaged youth. He knew he had to change his life to have a chance at a positive future for not only himself, but also for his children. Moore wrote, many of the other students were now looking to Wes for help with their GED prep, for assistance with their personal issues, and for their friendship. Just as he had on the corners of Baltimore, Wes became a leader. Wes was trying to get his education back on track. He began to excel and do great with his academics as well as his carpentry skills. This all dropped to shreds when Wes returned home. His family didn't have enough money for anything, and his children needed to be taken care of. Moore writes, as the baking soda swirled in the rapidly heating pot, Wes held the plastic bag in both hands and poured in 9 ounces of cocaine. Wes was back to the old him, selling drugs, trying to make ends meet for his family. The last straw for Wes was when he went to prison for being involved in the robbing of J. Brown's jewelers and murdering a cop. The ones involved were nowhere to be found after the robbery and murder took place. Moore wrote, when Wes didn't hear the door close behind Tony, he took one final bite and ran down the stairs to slam it shut. Before Wes could even react, half-dozen plainclothes officers were on top of him. The barrels of their guns trained on his head and the lights from their flashlights blinding him. This was the day that changed Wes's life forever, not for the better. The judge found him guilty on the charge of a first-degree felony murder. Wes would, from that point on, be behind bars for the rest of his life. His children and friends occasionally visited. Wes worked on himself in the Jesuit prison, converting to Islam. There he found himself to become a leader in the Muslim community. The expectations for both Westmores were equal, considering the times they grew up in. Moore wrote, we will do what others expect of us. Wes said, if they expect us to graduate, we will graduate. If they expect us to get a job, we will get a job. If they expect us to go to jail, then that's where we will end up too. At some point, you lose control. These young men's images was already molded for them. They weren't expected to graduate, get a white-collar job, or be successful in life. What people thought of them was limited to gangsters and drug dealers. No one believed that either one of them would become successful. One Wes proved them wrong, the other Wes didn't. Today, I'm growing up in a time where drugs are also flourishing, heroin and marijuana. I am constantly told by my mom, teachers, peers to never experience with them because they will grab a hold of you and cause addiction. Just like both Westmores, I lost my dad at the young age of 16. He wasn't always active in my life, but we spoke frequently. He and my family wanted the best for me, and I always wanted to follow through and make them proud. Education is very important to my family and I. My mom expects me to graduate high school, continue to college, and pursue my dream of being a nurse. The expectations from her are my biggest reasons to be successful, to make her proud and pursue my lifelong dream. I am very thankful that she has kept me on track throughout school and helped me realize that the actions I take now will greatly reflect on my future. Essentially, education, expectations, and environment can play a huge role and have a great impact on your future. Even though things may not look good in the moment, second chances or last chances are there to give you the chance to turn around. It's up to you whether you take that chance or not. Choosing your path and taking chances could be the difference between success or failure, life or death, or in the Moore's case, freedom or life in prison.